of Selena is reporting one person was killed as a result of those overnight tornadoes that stretched from Indiana to Ohio. They left behind a widespread path of destruction. Some 5 million people in Ohio are without power right now. Homes and businesses leveled this morning with at least a dozen communities suffering damage. Take a look at this.
We got out and maybe 10 minutes later it came through.
So I was gonna die. It's like out of a movie. You can never prepare for something like this.
It destroyed the house.
There are more than 50 reports of tornadoes from late last night through early this morning. This was the 13th straight day of tornadoes in the Midwest, and it's not over yet. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is live for us in Dayton, Ohio, and we're also joined by NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. First to Gabe. Gabe, tell us what you've been seeing out there.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning. Well, we just got here a short time ago, and this is some of the damage that we're seeing. Take a look at the power of this tornado. This is an elementary school. The roof collapsed on this as we step around this debris. We can kind of see the extent of the damage here. For a while, we had been told that there had been no serious injuries here in Ohio, but as you mentioned, just a short time ago, the mayor of Salina, Ohio, said that one person confirmed killed. At least 40 people have been injured in that area as well. Now, right here, you can see this is a classroom. The inside of a classroom. Just imagine what could have happened if there had been people inside. Luckily, this happened late at night, and many school districts here already out of classes, but just a terrifying scenario here at this elementary school. As we were driving in, we did see that, there's a lot of traffic in this area. As we were driving in, a lot of debris on the roads. Many neighborhoods are impassable because those trees have knocked down power lines. You mentioned that 5 million people were without power overnight in Ohio, and right now crews are going to be assessing the damage throughout the day. But this was a huge swath of storms. At least two reports of tornadoes here in the Ohio area. One of those storms basically went along the same path as the previous one, about 40 minutes after the initial one. But as you can see, this is going to be a long time cleanup effort here, and we do not yet know the full extent of the damage. Now that we have first light, crews should expect to find out more about it throughout the day. Search and rescue teams were also going door to door to try and find out if there had been any people trapped in their homes. We did get reports overnight, late at night, of rescue teams having to go in and get some of those people. Jeff, back to you.
Gabe Gutierrez, thanks for that report. And Bill Cairns, look, we've now had, 13 straight days of tornadoes, so this is quite a stretch for people who are, living in the affected region.
Yeah, there's two sides to this. May is typically our most active tornado month, so we know we get these events, but we've had day after day after day, and we've had at least 8 to 10 tornado reports for the longest stretch we've ever seen. So, there are unusual aspects of this. And when you combine this, the tornadoes, with all the river flooding and the flash flooding problems that we have, this is a multi-billion-dollar disaster that we're in the middle of and not over with yet.
It's like,
yes, we can't even add up at this point how many houses have been lost between the tornadoes and the flooding. And the flooding is going to be astronomical, and it's not done yet. So let me get into a little bit of it. And let's recap first what happened last night. 51 tornado reports. The one we just showed you where Gabe was standing was right here near Dayton. That was what went through about 10 to 11 o'clock last night. But there were 51 tornadoes yesterday.
51 tornadoes broke out last night. I had, or still got, excuse me for talking the way that I'm talking. Right now I'm dealing with a head cold. But I had a cousin, Joanne, that lived in Lynn, Missouri, which is just about 25 minutes from downtown Jefferson City, Missouri, that barely scathed damage pertaining to the astronomical damage that hit in downtown Jefferson City. Also, we had the Reno damage. It happened out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, as well as other damage areas in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, other parts of Oklahoma that got recently hit in the past 12, 13 days. And I want to share my input about all of this. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree, similar to how they disagreed with Al Gore in the early 1990s pertaining to the atmospheric changes. but I don't care at this particular point in time because I feel like that our survival as a nation is at risk pertaining to these environmental extreme changes. Even throughout the winter, we had such of a cold, wet, damp winter that the scientists can pinpoint of the El Nino effect that happened down in the South Gulf pertaining to the warming of the oceans. That's what brought on all the extensive rain after rain after rain. And I don't think that, all my years of 58 years of living, that I have ever seen the mighty Mississippi River as high as it is right now and as long as it's been. I don't think the ferry that works in between Hickman, Kentucky, over to Sipeston, Missouri, I don't think it's hardly done any work at all this year due to the high waters, because they can't function, the ferry, if the waters are above a certain floodplain. They're talking about the Arkansas River and the Missouri River bleeding off into the Mississippi River somewhere down below. I don't know how it connects, of it reaching astronomical high proportions that of scenes that has never been seen before as far as flooding. These are occurrences that are happening right in front of our eyes. Kind of like the frog in the steadily, gradually easing up the water. And he don't realize that the water is getting too hot until it's too late. This weekend alone, I have driven probably over 400 and something miles, almost 500 miles. I started my adventure. Please bear with me as I try to make this as obvious as I can. This is about the only pointer that I have. But whenever I started this Thursday, I'd basically done a rotation here in Weakley County and then back around through Obion County. But then I drove all the way towards Huntington over to Humphreys County, and I spent the first night over in Loretta Lynn's area, which is basically just on the other side of the Tennessee River. That would be in the Waverly, Tennessee area, Humphreys County. Displaying and flying my flags in support of Memorial Day. And of course, the main flag that I was flying was the American flag. But then I also had the Betsy Ross flag flying in honor of our military who sacrificed their lives beyond and during the Civil War era. Okay? But then after I left Humphreys County, I went back into Trigg County, and I'd done a lot of work there in the Benton area, and then left and went over into Paris and stayed a while in Paris. Then I went over into Paris Landing, and then whenever I got through with Paris Landing, I wound up going over here to Clarksville, Tennessee. Clarksville, Tennessee is where I spent Saturday night, and I also went to church Sunday morning at First Baptist there in Clarksville. I spent probably about 5 hours displaying our flags for Memorial Day there in Clarksville, and I estimate it was probably seen by at least, give or take, 100,000 people just in the Clarksville area alone, because there was a lot of people there in Clarksville pertaining to weekend celebrations, Memorial Day celebrations, people from not only out of state but people from other parts of the world that was there in gratification of our memorial. After I left, I went back home. I spent Sunday night at home, and Monday morning, actually on Memorial Day, I went to Kenton, Tennessee, and then up towards Rutherford, Dyer, Trenton, and then back down to Milan, Tennessee. And basically Milan, Tennessee is where I ended my memorial flag flying, and then wound up going back to my house, which is right in this area right here. And you may be asking, what the heck does this of your adventures towards displaying all your flags in about a 500-mile area, what the heck does that got to do with this and 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 all the flooding that's going to come down through the Arkansas area? What does all that got to do with all that, you may be asking? I'm going to tell you what. If you listen, while I was over in Paris Landing alone, Henry County, I estimated at least 10,000 boats that was on the water. Maybe not all the time, but 10,000 boats, give or take, of either fishing boats, ski boats, pontoon boats, or bigger boats, houseboats. 10,000. Just in one county and one county alone. Not counting all your ATVs, not counting all your golf carts, and not counting all the other pleasurable devices that human consumption has decided to play with. If you go over into Stewart County, just across the river, they probably had, give or take, about half of that was merging over into the Paris Landing area. And I'm pretty sure that was probably five different counties that was feeding into one county there in Paris or Henry County. But the further up you go, then you got two different rivers to choose from. You either got the Tennessee River or the Cumberland River. Well, the Cumberland River was just as badly flooded with boats and accessories as the Tennessee River, right there in the Clarksville area. I had no earthly idea that people had so much money that they could invest it in all these toys. We're talking some of these rigs that I looked at probably cost $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a brand new fishing boat that's got a 210 or 250 horse Mercury Black Max motor on the back end of it. Or maybe even more. I don't know, just the motor alone's probably $20,000. Just the motor without the boat on it. Whenever you take in excess of all of that, just in the area that I looked at, okay? Not counting all your parks, LBL up here, Piney Campground was totally full. I couldn't even get a primitive campsite. Completely full. You got campers that made reservations 6 months prior towards being there. But whenever you combine that with all these big RVs, recreation vehicles, that probably don't get but 5 or 6 miles to the gallon, and whenever you compile that with all the older model boats that does not meet EPA standards, we're talking about motors that you still have to mix the oil with the gas just so that it will run properly. If you'll combine that with all the ATVs, all the mowers that mows grass, all the 18-wheelers that's pulling loads, compile that with all the rivers all over America and all the lakes, with 250,000 people being on the road, it created a plume. In the plume, we've got places down here today in South Carolina. Savannah, Georgia has already reached a level of 102 degrees. We got places over here that's going to max out over 100 degrees here in May. This is unheard of. We've never heard of this. We've never heard of this. We're dealing with the very thing that Al Gore talked about as far as creating a plume. And in this plume, It has caused havoc with the atmosphere. Whenever the atmosphere reacts the way that it does towards excessive amounts of rain that has come down through these riverways, that is flooding now down here in the Arkansas areas and over towards other parts of Arkansas. Let me get my facts right here, my pointer right. Other parts of Arkansas that has not ever seen this proportion of rains that has fallen into this area. You got a recipe of disaster. A recipe of disaster. Once more, my niece, my cousin Joanne, she lives somewhere in here in Lynn. Jefferson City was hit here. Oklahoma's done been hit several different times by different tornadoes. Over in this area got hit real hard. There's been several outbreaks. We've had outbreaks now for the past 12 or 13 days of massive tornado. And the thing about the tornadoes, whenever a tornado hits, whenever a low pressure like that develops, it's full of so much moisture and so much rain that this rain unleashes all at one time, 6, 8, 10, 12 inches of rain in less than an hour. Our rivers and our waterways can't handle that. And because it can't handle that, it's causing multi-billion-dollar event, just like the man just got through talking about. We're going to have to wake up, people, to the atmospheric changes and what we're doing to the atmosphere pertaining to all these toys that we play with. And I realize there's certain things that are prioritized, such as in your country setting areas towards mowing your yards. If you didn't mow your yards, the mosquitoes would eat you alive. There are certain things that we're going to have to take adjustments to, especially whenever it comes to older model motors that does not meet EPA standards, regardless whether it be on a daggum jet ski or it be on a daggum boat of some sort. We're gonna have to look at this in a much more profound, deeper way, because if we don't, we're all going to be in big trouble in another 3 to 4 more years from now. And we're not just talking about multi-billion-dollar storm damage cost. We're talking about trillion-dollar storm damage cost. We're talking about events that we can't even wrap our minds around towards thinking. Let's listen to the rest of what this guy has to say today. Please listen.
And we could be something similar today. The one that went through Dayton that destroyed that elementary school, which, you think, the end of this school year, no way, but they may not even get back into that school in time for next school year. This is the tornado. You can see it right here. Here's the little V notch down in here. They call this like a stovepipe tornado. And I've seen some of those trees where the leaves were just stripped, the branches were stripped off. The only thing that was left was the trunk and some of the main stems of the tree. Usually that's like an EF3 or EF4. The tornado scale goes from 0 to 5, 5 being the strongest. So this was a pretty strong one. So for today, we just got the new update for the severe weather expected today. In the Northeast, watch out. Pittsburgh all the way through Harrisburg to Philadelphia to New York City, all the way back down to Baltimore, almost to Washington, D.C. We could even see an isolated tornado or two, 28 million people at risk. And then we'll cut back in the Midwest. We now are up to a moderate risk. There's a good chance of not only tornadoes, but strong tornadoes in areas from Kansas City to St. Joseph here, from Columbia northwards up into southern portions of Iowa. We have to watch this closely later on this evening. 20 million people at risk in this area here. So in total, we're up to like 44 million people and about
44 million people are at risk in some form or fashion pertaining to this. 44 million. There's a little less than 400 million in America. That's affecting a big portion of people's lives, because the way I understand what happened yesterday, and once more they're giving predictions today of it even being worse. But as of yesterday in Savannah, Georgia, not too far from Hilton Head, which I'm very, very familiar with, it registered 102 degrees in Savannah, Georgia yesterday. All the way over here. All the way over here. All the way over there in Phoenix, Arizona, in the desert. It only registered 82. 82 degrees over here versus 102 degrees right there. And like I said, there's an area right through here that they are predicting that it could possibly exceed over 100 degrees up to 105, 106 degrees. Now, I don't know if that is estimated towards how it actually feels or what it actually is. But the bottom line is this, my friends. We are traveling entirely too much, in which I blame myself. Just like this week. I mean, I made an adventure towards doing what I was doing for our veterans on Memorial's Day by putting almost 500 miles on my truck. That's a lot of miles just to display what our military has sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice for. But to me, my 500-mile journey was worth it. But a lot of people will load up. They'll go up here into the mountains of Missouri just to go venturing into the White Rapids or go see the canyons of the mountains, or they'll go to Six Flags or whatever. And it's all recreation. It's all recreation, in which I'm not saying that a little bit of recreation is not a bad thing, because a little bit of recreation is a good thing. All work, no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? Right. But whenever you have over 200, almost 300 million people that's on the go this weekend, because people had a little bit of money in their pockets, all right? And they was traveling, they was going here, they was going there. But if you'll look at all the waterways, and we're not talking about just the major waterways. Up here it's still yet too cold yet for them to strip off all their clothes and dive off into a waterway. But down here, I'm going to say from this line down, it was full of boats and full of activity as far as people being on ski-doos and if you look at just Tennessee alone, at all our rivers, our big lakes, even our big, what you'd consider a pond. I guess a pond is considered a pond, anything less than 2 to 5 acres. But if you look at the waterways, just in Tennessee alone, especially if you go up into the Nashville, Knoxville area, we are full of recreation this time of year. And I'm not saying that a little bit of that's not okay, because it is. But whenever you have a developing situation that's going to cost billions, okay? Then we have to start trying to figure out, is our boats and our ski-doos and our powered lawnmowers and our powered golf carts and our ATVs, as far as all of our play pretties, we have to start asking the question, are all these things worth it whenever it comes to seeing such atmospheric conditions that have been on the rise now for the past 12 or 13 days. I knew God had showed me, because I got a friend in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that used to be a United States Marshal, that was one of the ones that caused the involvement of my automobile in 2009, that things was building up. And I sent him a letter telling him to prepare, because the atmosphere was setting itself up for something major. And sure enough, we can see all the way up through Texas, all the way up through this area of how major that major is. And it's pretty major, especially whenever you're talking about a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar event.
Get all these thunderstorms, we're going to get more rain too. And then tomorrow we do it again from Dallas to Fort Worth, all the way over through Fort Smith. The Fort Smith area and Tulsa has been hit so hard with all the river flooding, day after day of thunderstorms. It's making things worse. Here's your flash flood alerts, 6 million people at this. And Jeff, I'll leave it with this map. This map here shows us all the major rivers that are having a considerable record or close to record flood stage, including the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Arkansas, and the Illinois River here. This map shows us another.
Okay, I see now where the Arkansas River comes back into the mighty Mississippi right here. I didn't know where it come in at. Fort Smith, that's where the hangman judge was. They're claiming massive flooding on this whole river canal right here. And of course, the mighty Mississippi, it's been out of control now for the past 2 months as far as it being off the charts.
3 to 6 inches of rainfall on top of those rivers. And so it's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
The dams can't hold any more water. Levees are going to start failing. And there's no end in sight.
Bill Cairns, thank you. And Gabe Gutierrez in Ohio, thanks to you both. We've got some.
Let's back that up one more time because this is crucial.
This
Let's
closely
listen.
later on this evening. 20 million people at risk in this area here. So in total, we're up to like 44 million people in about 14 different states just for today alone. And of course, we get all these thunderstorms. We're going to get more rain too. And then tomorrow, we do it again from Dallas to Fort Worth, all the way over through Fort Smith. The Fort Smith area and Tulsa has been hit so hard with all the river flooding, day after day of thunderstorms. It's making things worse. Here's your flash flood alerts. 6 million people at this. And Jeff, I'll leave it with this map. This map here shows us all the major rivers that are having a considerable record or close to record flood stage, including the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Arkansas, and the Illinois River here. This map shows us another 3 to 6 inches of rainfall on top of those rivers. And so it's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
The dams can't hold any more water. Levees are going to start failing. And there's no end in sight.
Bill Cairns, thank you. Okay.
Our reservoirs is not made for this. And like I said a while ago, it's not just a casual rainstorm. Whenever these clouds come in, they dump 6, 8, 10, 12 inches of rain in a short distance of time. And whenever you do that again and again and again and again, this is what you get. You get massive flooding. The Tennessee River right now is probably leveled out pertaining to the rains that has fallen up in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Reelfoot Lake, their waters is very, very high right now. They have went through extensive flooding for the past 6 to 8 weeks. But this is all based around environmental changes. And this is the part that I know people don't want to talk about, especially whenever it comes to their toys. But this is something that we're going to have to address, and we need to address it today. It should have already been addressed whenever Al Gore started talking about it in the early 90s. Please, let's pay attention to what we're doing to Mother Earth. Thanks for listening. And once more, let's plan to the pull and pull to the plan pertaining to how that we're going to survive tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and for our children to survive after we're already dead and gone, because they're going to have to live through the aftermath of all this. Please, let's pay attention to what's going on with Mother Earth, just like the Bible says that in the last days that there will be signs in the heavens and signs upon the earth such as man has seen before, because these are all indications of the sin that is going on in the planet. And when we think of sin, we think, oh, he committed adultery, or oh, she stole something, or oh, he was lying. There's all kinds of different ways that mankind can bring sin to the planet, other than breaking the commandments of God. So please, let's listen. to what Mother Nature is telling us. Shalom and good luck. God bless.